Welcome to this video on the principles of grid art. If you're new to grid art, I explain the structure of grid art and the framework in another video. But today I want to share something a little deeper. I don't want to talk about techniques or about materials. I want to talk about the principles that I return to almost every time I work into a grid. They're not strict rules. They're more like principles or gentle reminders. And you don't need all of them. When you try, just try one and just notice what is changing. The first principle is start with intuition and end with intention. When I begin a square, I just don't overthink. I let my hand move, I place a color or stick on a piece of paper, and I just respond quickly. That is intuition. But at the end of a square or total grid, I pause. I look what's there. Maybe I add some contrast. I deepen an edge. I add those little teeny tiny details, or sometimes I just remove something completely. And that's the shift from intuitive movement into small intentional decision. That creates a balance and it keeps the work alive but not chaotic. And principle 2, I work from large to small. I almost always start with larger shapes. Broad color areas, big gestures. Well, big in the sketchbook's not really big, but you know what I mean. Only to do, I add later like the lines, the dots, the texture, the small details. And if you begin tiny details, the page can tighten quickly and you won't get the intuitive feel. Working large first makes the grid open. It gives you room to breathe, for example. And the third principle is about repetition. Repetition creates rhythm. Because when I repeat a shape, a color, or a gesture just across the whole grid, I can create a connection between those grids, even when each square is totally different. Repetition ties them all together. It builds a quiet rhythm, and you don't need everything to match. You just need something that echoes. And the fourth principle is one constraint creates freedom. Try to limit yourself. For example, limit to a color family, limit yourself to a shape or to materials. This doesn't restrict you, this helps you focus. And then when there are fewer choices, your hand just relaxes, your mind relaxes. And surprisingly, constraints create more variation, not less, because you ease into it. And the fifth principle is let one square be messy. It's not that all the other squares cannot be messy too, but just you know that one square always ends up wrong, it doesn't work, it looks awkward. And when you know that up front, you will loosen the rest of the grid. It feels less controlled. You just can play instead of becoming too stiff because you want them all to work. The messy square just brings the energy back. Grids are forgiving, and maybe that's why I return to them all the time. And the sixth principle is maybe the most important one. Watch and respond. At some point, I stop making and I start looking. First, I look at the grids as a whole, and then I look at them as individual squares. And I just ask myself, what does this need? Not what was my rule or not what did I plan, because I can skip them completely. But what does it need now? Sometimes it means breaking my own constraints. Sometimes I'm just adding a totally different color. And maybe I suddenly add a shape that wasn't meant to be in there. I wanted to add something bold when I planned something subtle. And sometimes I just remove something. Because early in the process, I work on a grid as a whole, and later I begin responding to individual squares. And that shift from applying a system to entering some kind of dialogue, maybe, that's where the page starts to feel alive and more me. And you don't need to use all these 6 principles. Just choose one next time. And maybe today, just think, I want to start larger or allow one messy square. I'm going to pause and respond. Grid art isn't about control. It's about creating a container where exploration just feels safe and fun and easy. And then just staying curious enough to respond to whatever appears. More grid experiments are coming, like watercolor or collage or different variations, and they will be in this playlist. So keep exploring. Follow me if you want to be updated for the upcoming videos in this playlist, and just like it if you really got these principles and respond to me what principles really resonated for you. Hope to see you next time. For now, just let's keep exploring.